Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Idea to Value podcast, coming at you live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube again. I'm your host, Nick Skillicorn, and I've been looking forward to this discussion for quite a while now. We've got the wonderful Diana Kander with us today. She is a New York Times best-selling author on the subject of innovation and a worldwide renowned innovation keynote speaker, helping people to improve their own curiosity. And yeah, Diana, I'm really looking forward to our discussion today.
I'm so excited to chat, Nick. Thank you.
Since we are live as well, don't forget, if you are watching this, if you send a chat message, especially on LinkedIn, I should be able to see those come up live as we're going through it. Let us know where you're watching in from, or if you've got any specific questions you'd like to ask. Let's see if we get some questions to answer live today. But to start off, Diana, it's all about you today. So for people who don't know about you or the work that you do, could you just give us a brief background as to where you got started and how you got to where you are now?
Sure. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've started 10 different companies in a variety of different industries, from software to services. I haven't done anything in nuclear power, but that's pretty much it. And for the last 7 years, I've been writing and speaking about how people can be more entrepreneurial at work, how they can create a lot more value for their customers, how they can gain valuable insights, and how they can innovate every single day.
Now, you say that you've worked in more or less every industry. Usually when people have a startup company, or more than one startup company, it's in the same sort of field and very similar to what you've done before. But what sort of startups have you been involved with?
You know, I tried to spend my 20s kind of thinking of myself as having a Batman utility belt for entrepreneurship. And so I just wanted to try as many different things and see what I liked, what I didn't like, what I was good at. And so I've had product companies, software as a service companies, construction management companies, legal services, staffing companies, real estate management companies, real estate investment companies. So just kind of all over the board.
And were they all equally successful, or
No,
what sort
of course not.
what sort of memories do you have there?
One didn't generate any revenue. That was the first one. I was the minority partner. That was the first 3 companies. I was the minority partner. It was somebody else's money and idea. And some of them became very successful, and the majority were like, meh.
I think that's the experience of most people who try and start up their own thing, and especially start up different things. It's very hard to predict at the beginning what product market fit there's going to be, or how the market reacts to what you've got. But all of that experience then brought you into the world of helping other people with their ideas and their companies. And it brought you to writing as well. So can you tell us about your book, and especially what sort of ideas it has behind it?
Yeah, so, it came out of a really painful failure, as I think a lot of good coaching comes from. So I started a business that was a fast-growing software company. We raised $500,000 in angel investment. The company started skyrocketing, and then it went up and then straight down very, very quickly. And in my difficult time of coming to terms with what was happening, I started journaling about the experience. And that journal turned into my first book called All In Startup, which is all about how to and how not to launch disruptive new products and services.
And take us into the concepts between the all-in startup. Does it mean, as Tony Robbins would say, burn the boats, go all in, and never look backwards?
No, it's like literally whatever you do. Don't go all in when you have a good idea. And it's most difficult for people who have been really successful throughout their career and now have this idea that they've fallen in love with, to not go all in before they have evidence from the market that it's a valid idea and that they're solving a problem in the marketplace. So I would say one of the top things is find a migraine level problem rather than a headache that you're solving, something that people are clamoring to solve, so that you're not just out there pushing your idea on everybody, that you find something that people can't wait to get from you or talk to other people about.
Well, what is a migraine level problem?
Yeah, so if you think about a headache versus a migraine, lots of people get headaches, but they just wait for them to go away. They usually like don't go to any kind of lengths to spend money to solve a headache. But a migraine, people go to extreme lengths to solve it. They get Botox, they take really expensive medication. Some people have brain surgery to get rid of migraines because they're so debilitating and painful. And so you want to make sure you're solving a problem that people will actually spend money to solve that problem. And that's a very specific kind of thing to focus in on, not just something that is neat or people think is great, but solves a big problem in the market.
I think a lot of people would find the challenge of validating an idea before being able to determine whether or not people would be willing to pay for it, though. What's your sort of view on figuring out whether or not someone would be willing to pay for something? Do you need to build the whole solution first, or are there other things that you can do to test it?
Yeah, absolutely not. The first thing you should know is don't ask people, would you pay for this? Because number one, they're usually lying to you to be nice. Number two, they have no idea if they would pay for it. So they're just, trying to say something that will make you stop asking. The easiest thing to say to somebody who doesn't have a product is like, sure, let's end this conversation. I'll buy it. Just go do it. So I would say before I commit to building something, which was not the case in that first startup that was extremely painful for me, I would have a certain amount of money and revenue coming in before I committed the dollars to invest in software development or building the actual product. And the way that I think about it is, if you think about, okay, you're going to spend all this time and money building the thing, and then what? At the end of that process, you'll have a website or some way to market to people. So start with that. Start with the website or whatever it is that you're going to say to people to see if they'll actually try to get it from you. One of the experiments that I love to encourage entrepreneurs to do, especially ones working on apps, is to go wherever they're going to sell the app and try to get people to download the app and find the app not found screen in their menu. So like, go to the grocery store or wherever you're going to tell people about it and see if you can actually get them to take their phone out of their pocket, look for your app and be like, I can't find it. And if you can get that, then you have something. But most of the time people will be like, that's great. Like, have a nice day, and they won't care about your thing. So do you have something people actually care about?
It's I often say to my clients, no one actually cares what you think of your own idea. And that's a real sort of hurdle that a lot of innovators and especially owners and founders need to get over. It's a blocker in the way of progress in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to fall in love with your idea. So like, even me, I teach this stuff. When I come up with new ideas, all I want to do is name it and come up with swag, to create the product. Like, I fall in love with my idea as hard as anyone else. And so you need that outside perspective of like, wait a minute, like, before we make the t-shirts, let's see if somebody will actually give us money for it.
So that's the concept behind All In Startup.
Yes.
More recently, you've been starting to think about how to help other companies and individuals, especially when it comes to the other aspects of getting the right idea or staying curious. So what's your current thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. So my second book is, I took the concepts of All In Startup about interviewing customers and experimenting with projects. And I found that inside of large organizations, they feel like they don't need that stuff. They know the customer better than the customer knows themselves. They've been so successful that they expect it to just continue on moving forward. And they actually have become very disconnected from customers. So my second book, The Curiosity Muscle, is how companies can continue to stay curious. Jim Collins, who wrote the book Good to Great, he also wrote this book, How the Mighty Fall. And he outlined this 5-step process of how big successful companies go out of business and stop being relevant. And step 1 is hubris born of success. So being successful can actually be very dangerous if you're not on the lookout for those dangers. So how do we maintain our curiosity inside of success and continue to grow instead of becoming comfortable and resting on what got us here?
I had a podcast interview with a science journalist recently called David Robson, and he introduced me to this idea called earned dogma. And that's effectively saying a lot of people of very high intelligence get to a certain level in their field and have effectively proven their worth and therefore need to stop thinking about what others might be bringing to the field. Effectively, the status quo is whatever it was that got them there, and they don't need to improve anymore.
Yeah, somebody told me, an expert is somebody who knows the limits of what's currently possible. And they're usually not the one to find out the next thing that's possible because they're like constrained inside that box of what currently exists. Absolutely.
Now, one real challenge when speaking with these people in these companies where they feel I know more about my customer than my customer does, is how do you convince them that maybe they're actually incorrect? Maybe their thought patterns are leading them astray or are actually not what the customer needs. It's a very challenging conversation, I can imagine.
Sure. So the kind of tool that I use is, if you're really listening to customers, you should be surprised on a fairly regular basis and hear feedback that's almost painful. And so if it's been at least 6 months, oftentimes it's been years since an executive has heard customer feedback that they find surprising and maybe a little bit painful, then I guarantee they have blind spots about their product and service that their customers are not sharing. And so, do like a really quick gut check, how long it's been since you found that kind of information, and then let's get out there and get it.
So is this what you talk about when you're talking about developing curiosity, or is that something else?
No, absolutely. So curiosity is the space between what you currently know and what you don't know. And most people walk around in the world with no space. They're just like, I know what I'm supposed to do at work. I just need to check things off this to-do list. And being more curious is making that space and saying, like, I wonder what my customers are disappointed by. I wonder what else they're considering right now. I wonder if my employees are looking for other places to go work, right? I wonder how many of my employees are looking for other jobs right now because they're not engaged. And so unless you make that space, you'll never hear those answers. So how do you make the space to be curious about the things that are going to help your organization continue to grow?
It's probably not just making the space, though, but finding an effective means of getting honest answers to questions.
100%.
Because I can imagine, a lot of companies, especially when it comes to engagement of their own employees, the classic thing to do is do a survey. And yes, people can rate sort of, oh, everything's great or everything's terrible. And usually everything seems to be quite fine when you ask people like that.
So most people approach these surveys like a manager at a restaurant, when they walk by your table and they're like, how's everything? Is it good? Is it great? Okay. Like, they don't care. And that's the kind of responses you get to an employee survey. To me, I've actually been thinking this concept a lot. Most companies test engagement, which is like the most vanity metric you could have. It means like, are you physically present and interested in being here? Like, that is not an interesting metric for an organization. Like, how many of my employees are looking for other jobs currently? What percentage of their capacity and potential am I getting? That's an interesting question. And once you start opening yourself up to hearing hard answers, like, what do you wish could be better? Then you could start to improve. Like, curiosity is the origin for innovation. So what are you going to get curious about that you want to grow?
So how do you suggest companies, individuals, and especially leaders start to move towards this truth-seeking way of thinking?
Yeah, I mean, think about it as growing, just like exercise grows your muscles. If you go to the gym and you use 1 pound weights, I think I have one around here. It doesn't do anything towards your muscles. It's easy. So you have to pick up weights that are hard and actually are difficult for you to lift. And so think about getting feedback that's difficult to receive that helps you grow towards the future. So think about an area in your business that you want to grow. You want to grow how many new customers you're getting. You want to grow customer retention. You want to grow employee retention. and then start getting curious about that area and where you want to find surprises.
Are you suggesting, though, people should actively seek out negative feedback, or what's this balance between finding the truth and finding the hard truths?
Yeah, I mean, even I, who teach this stuff, like, I can't just get negative feedback all the time. I'm a human, and I have an ego that needs to be told, like, I'm doing a great job. So I give myself, like, every 6 months, if my business isn't growing, if I don't hit the kind of metrics that I want in my business, then I'll go out and seek the kind of feedback that's going to help me grow to the next level. So think about this surprising feedback as the way to exponentially grow your organization.
How about when it's not just an individual who's looking for the truth or trying to build their curiosity, but an entire team or an entire department, or especially if it's someone else who needs to hear these truths? How can entire organizations improve their willingness to be curious and then actually executing on that curiosity as well?
So you need to systematize, like, curiosity, put something in place to help people know that you're interested. So a friend of mine is the product leader of a large organization, and he rewards employees who bring him surprising insights about customers that change his perspective. And he calls them burrito full insights, like beautiful, but burrito. He buys them a Chipotle burrito. If they find a kind of insight, they get to go to lunch with them where he asks about how they figured it out. But he's basically saying, like, I want to be surprised about our own customers. You help me figure that out because you care about the customers as much as I do. So make it clear to your employees that that's something that is of interest to you and is valued, and then celebrate it in your organization. Like, here's something that we found that was incredibly valuable. I also once worked with this company that's in a very, like, stagnant field. Their industry is, like, growing 1 or 2% a year. This company's growing 25% a year. And I saw a presentation that they had annually to their customers, their biggest customers. And they said, we talked to you over the last couple of months, and here are the things that you're disappointed in about what we've been doing over the last year. Like, can you imagine a company saying that to their customers? And they're like, here's what you said last year, and here's what we did about it. And we're going to do something about this stuff. And those things are connected. Like, being curious and honest and transparent and willing to do the work is connected to growing at 20 or 25% in an industry that's not growing at all.
I mean, it also requires a degree of psychological safety in the team where people within the organization are then able to not only share that feedback, but share their own views on what's maybe not working as well as it could, and then the company being willing to do something about it.
Absolutely. Like, you have to actually care about the customer at the end of the day. The places where psychological safety doesn't exist are places where internal politics have taken over, and most people, including management, is just concerned about protecting their own reputation and their own position. So you have to make sure that your organization is focused on the customer and not politics.
Can you give us a couple of effective examples of, well, questions of examples of effective questions to
Sure.
To ask when you're speaking with customers, though? And the reason I ask that is there's the famous quote by Henry Ford that if you ask your customers what they want, quite often they don't know what they want, or what might be an option that they hadn't considered yet.
Yeah, well, I 100% agree with him. Don't ask your customers what they want. Ask them about what they're currently doing and get insights from that. So questions that I ask that most companies don't think to ask, it's like, what could you be getting from us that you're getting from other service providers? Oh my gosh. Or like, what do you wish your service rep, like, if you could have him take or her take a class in anything, what would you have them learn about? I like to say, like, give me 3 things that we could be doing better. Not like, could we be doing anything better, which is more likely to get, like, you're fine. but like, no, I want to be specific. Give me 3 things that we could be doing better. When you talk about our organization, how do you describe it to other people? Have there been any points of frustration over the last year where you like talk to your spouse or somebody else in the company about it? Like, can you name time? Have you looked for other providers who do what we do, or have you met with any? Have you just taken any meetings, and who did you meet with and why? So these are very vulnerable questions that most companies would be afraid to ask because they're afraid to hear the answer. Somebody once told me, like, I once asked my customers this, and then they fired me because they had never thought about it, but they decided they didn't like me. And so I'm not going to do that. And I would say, like, that's the wrong approach. They're definitely thinking about how they don't like you. And statistically, 92% of customers will never say anything. They will just go pick another provider. And I fall into that 92%. It's a pretty large percentage. So you need to figure it out. It's much easier to save a customer than it is to try to win one back, for sure.
What about if you're trying to lure someone who isn't a customer yet? The biggest competition for almost any company isn't their direct competitors, but it's companies or individuals who are choosing to not use the services of anyone. So how do you sort of start getting feedback from the people that you don't have a relationship with?
Yeah, you need to find a migraine level problem. It all goes back to the beginning. What is it that they find really frustrating in their life? How can you sell your service in such a way that really solves something that's been on their mind, that they're losing sleep over? If you can find the problem and just be like, I know you're losing sleep over this thing, they'll buy whatever the solution is. So get much more curious about their problems, and it'll be way easier to sell your solutions.
Has there been any other sort of unrelated, adjacently related insights that you've gotten when you've been developing the second book, and maybe what you're working on for your next couple of projects that really sparked your thinking in a different direction?
Yeah, to me, the most surprising thing is how much of a role fear plays inside of large organizations, and how the number one impediment to innovation is fear. And one of the most interesting things about it is the more innovative the work that you're doing, the more presence of fear there is, because there's more uncertainty. So people who are leading innovation efforts should understand that you need to do even more work to establish psychological safety on innovation projects and teams, because the ground is moving at a much faster pace. And so that's probably been the biggest realization over the last year or so.
One of my favorite guests is a lady called Denise Jacobs, who talks about anxiety and fear. And she uses this wonderful acronym of fear. FEAR is false expectations as real. People are afraid of things that haven't necessarily happened yet, but could happen. And I think that's what really stifles companies when it comes to innovation and new ideas, because you don't know what the result of this idea is going to be. So how does one start helping to develop this culture of psychological safety when it comes to scary new ideas that break the status quo?
It's a great question. I think the first thing that you need to do is think about what got you as a leader to grow the most in the past. So what did somebody do or say to you that helped you get to the next level? And then think about the opposite. What did somebody do or say to you that crushed your spirit and made you not do anything? And then understand that each one of the people on your team has the exact same stories. So things that they find motivating, things that they find demotivating, and listen to those stories. There's a lot of insights into them. So for some people, they had somebody in their life who was like, you take on this big project, I trust you, you can handle it. And for others, it could be a crushing moment because they didn't want that kind of responsibility. So understand what drives your specific people, not just like the ins and outs of innovative work and how to run experiments and talk to customers, but your team on a human level, and understand their fears about the next level, the project. And you'll be in just asking those questions is the beginning of creating psychological safety.
Now, Diana, while people probably know you best from your online videos and your books, you actually, as we've seen, go in and help companies overcome these sorts of challenges. What sort of work do you do, and how do you find this helps companies most effectively?
So I take on a role as entrepreneur in residence in one organization each year, and I help them do a big innovation project. Sometimes it's a cultural effort, like they want to be more innovative as an organization. Sometimes they want to just launch new products and services, and so I help them do that. Currently, the company wants to double in size in the next 5 years, so helping them figure out how to do that. It's different in each case, and I just entrepreneur all over the place to help them find those insights for opportunities and growth.
But while you're working with that one company, do you do any other sort of speaking, training, workshop engagements with others?
Yeah, absolutely. So the majority of my time is spent doing keynote speeches for large organizations and workshops that help them develop these skills and turn innovation into a habit as opposed to just a nice to have. You know, habits are the essence of your company culture. And so in order to get from point A to point B, you need to analyze your habits and figure out which new ones you need, like psychological safety, to help you get there.
I think habits are something that I used to think were the antithesis of creativity and innovation, but more and more research is coming out showing nearly every productive creative person relied on habits and actually using time and focus to do the work to make these ideas happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right. So you need to have habits to question your work, to have an objective perspective about the work that you're doing, to iterate the project as opposed to just fall in love with it, to actually care about what customers are saying. These are things that you want to throw out the window when you have an idea that you fall in love with and you just want to implement or build it. That's what we want in our guts. So the habits are what are going to help you get to the finish line.
Perfect. Diana, we're coming up to the end now. If people want to find out more about you, the work that you do, what's the best place they can go to find out more?
You can find out on dianakander.com, but actually I'm very invested in LinkedIn, so would love for you to connect with me on there and follow me. I put out innovation tips and insights every single day. And otherwise, I'm on social media at Diana Kander in most places.
I follow Diana myself. I love the sort of videos and insights she puts out there. So I really recommend you follow her as well. Diana, on that note, it's been really wonderful speaking with you directly today. I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to speaking again with you soon.
Thank you so much, Nick.